Hi everyone, this is Jenny Lands, MFA of punkpioneers.com, and I am sharing some stories of photos which I created and I'm selling, and you can read the stories and buy the photos or limited merch, and you can come back later and look at the links. But let's get going with April, because it's April 2018, so let's look back at April 1977, a really important month for coming together of punk in LA. We started with the Runaways. Now this photo was actually taken at the Whiskey the following August, but I'm including it because people really love it. It's dueling guitars with Joan Jett on the left and Lita Ford on the right. And this is Lita, April 1st at the Santa Monica Civic, and Cherry Bomb, Cherie Curry, also at the Civic. The opening band was, yes, Cheap Trick, and we had seen them at the Starwood in March, and it was a fantastic show. What can I say? Of course, you know. Rick Nielsen, Tom Peterson, and Joan Jett. This was backstage at the Whiskey following December, but have to include a photo of Kim Fowley and Joan Jett. Then on April 9th, Bomp Records opened, and Tamata Duplanty in the center had introduced both himself and Tommy Gear on the right to me when Blondie and the Ramones played at the Whiskey in February 77. So when I saw them, and I had been photographing and seeing them between February and April, but when I saw them at the opening at Bomp Records, I asked them if we could do some photos. So this is a real favorite of mine, just as the sun is starting to go down in North Hollywood. And nobody other than Richard Hale in New York and Johnny Rotten in England had spiky hair and the torn clothes. Richard Hale and Tamata and Tommy had been in New York before they came to LA, and Tommy knew the Ramones. He knew Joey and Dee Dee well, and Blondie. And he had painted his pants, and he's wearing cowboy boots. People just didn't wear that in those days, tear their clothes, and Tommy Gear always liked putting newspaper headlines on his clothes. And this trio is in Urges knew something to be psyched out. Yeah, he was very, oh, it looks like he burnt his collar. I love them. And KK became an Academy Award nominated art director for She and other films. I think She was the Academy Award nomination. And Tommy Gear, KK Barrett, and Tamata Duplanty. And you'll find this online. There's a live video of the Screamers at the Mask, December 16th, 1977. And somebody put yellow in the background, which I can't stand because it's really beautiful grayscale image. And the bottom margin is larger because then it gives me room to sign it. And if you find that video, you will find a woman who first is sitting on the floor and rapidly chewing gum, and then she's audience left, stage right, and she's whipping Tamata, pushing him away from her, and then pulling Tamata towards her. That woman was me. Ha ha ha. I'm so glad that footage exists because, yeah, I just really am. We had a lot of fun, and I was dancing with Darby Crash of the Germs too. Okay, so that was April 9th. And then on Thursday, okay, from April 14th to the 18th were the 5 days that changed LA Punk. So backstage at the Whiskey, Debbie Harry, because television was debuting at the Whiskey, and they were in town because they were performing the next night. And I felt like it was the only night that I ever felt like New York in LA, where we had Blondie and television, and Lisa Robinson, and Joe Smith, the president of Elektra. In all the years of taking pictures, my 4 years, I never saw a record company president backstage other than that night. So this was, oh, I had his name before, now I forgot. Velvet Turner, yes. Velvet, Yeah, he and Jimi Hendrix were close. I had no idea who these people were when I was taking pictures. And then there's Richard Lloyd, who was the guitarist for television, and Tom Verlaine. And just recently I read that it was the anniversary of the first night of the first punk band in punk playing CBGBs, and I think it was 1974. You can Google it, and it was television. So I really love this picture. This is straight out of the camera with the magenta lights, and I love television to listen to. Marquee Moon is amazing, but photographing, this was about as good as it got. I like movement. So the next night, Blondie opened for Iggy, and my Blondie photos are from the Whiskey in February. But hey, these are about my photos that I am selling and want people to know the stories behind them. So I much preferred photographing in a small venue than something large. And the Civic was something like 3,000 and the Whiskey was, I don't know, 500. But I could stand on the stairs, nobody hassled me, and then I could shoot the whole stage or a close-up. So this was when Blondie played with Tom Petty, and that's what TP is. And this makes a beautiful print. There you can really see the netting. And I really loved Blondie on stage. I remember being over on audience right or stage left photographing her. This would have been on the stairs, but I remember being over there and looking around, and there were a bunch of people dancing. And at that time in February 77, I didn't know many of them, but they all became friends and subjects. They're in my photos for the next few years till 1980. And then I was on the audience left, stage right next to the stage, and Debbie was rolling around on the floor and getting up, and Dee Dee Fay, a backdoor man, told me she wanted to run this photo on the cover, and I said, no, I'm a nice Jewish girl, you don't show ladies' panties. But it became, yeah, my most infamous photo. And it's nothing compared to what we see now, but it was quite scandalous for me. And it actually got me banned from shooting Blondie, although I'd called the manager and asked for permission. It's a long story, but he never believed that I ever called the audience, the office. So anyway, and then the main act was Iggy, and this is my photo on this poster, and all of these that are the prints are in my Punk Pioneers book, so they've all been high-res scans, so you can buy these. Then, okay, so that was the 15th. Then on the 16th was the opening of Bomp Records opened the week before, April 9th, but this was April 16th, and The Damned made a personal appearance, and that's really fun. I have a lot of pictures which are not scanned, but of showing them inside, and it was very crowded, and again, many of the people that I was photographing became friends or subjects or performers, and you really saw the beginning of something big happening. That was Bomp Records. And then that night, April 16th, we went over to the Orpheum, which was around the corner from where I lived, which was across the street from Tower Records. And in the audience were the Damned. So we have Captain Sensible, the bassist, and Dave Vanian, the singer, and Jake Riviera, their manager, who also managed this up-and-coming guy. You might have heard of him. I think his name is Declan. No, not Declan. It's Elvis something. Elvis Costello. And Graham Parker, and two men I really enjoyed professionally. I love them. Dave Edmonds and Nick Lowe, and their band was Rockpile, and they would but they would visit Bomp. I think it was May. Okay, so to finish the lineup, we've got Brian James, who was the guitarist, and later he played with Iggy. I shot and saw him in November '79 in San Francisco with Iggy. So then they were watching. The three bands were the Zeros and the Weirdos, and the Germs were there for a quick moment. I didn't know if I missed it. So at one point, when the Weirdos were playing, Captain Sensible jumped on stage and joined them for the Seeds, Pushing Too Hard. And the Seeds were an LA band who were big in the 60s. And this is Elvis. It's Robert Lopez, whose band was the Zeros, and then he He told me years ago when Alice Bagg and Greg were having their wedding reception sometime in the 90s out in Pasadena in this beautiful Craftsman house. And he said, Jenny, I am the Mexican Elvis. I'm Elvis. And he's made quite a wonderful career for himself. And he doesn't just do Elvis. He does a wide variety of music. He's very talented. Okay, so that was the 16th. Now, the Damned had been kicked off the bill with television. There had been some problems because people were liking The Damned more than television, because television's real meditative. The Damned is you get up and you have a good time and it's real high energy. It's very strange double bill. And, you know, most early punks wanted that high energy. Although, yeah, television had a different style. I love them both, but for live and The Damned. So they got a gig at the Starwood. And I used to roll my own film, and so this is kind of weird, but I really like it. It is Dave Vanian with the gas mask and a flare. And I'd read online, I knew that the Bags had written a song called We Don't Need the English, because all the press would talk about in 77, until 80, the whole time I was taking pictures, 76 to 80, was New York and England. LA was barely mentioned, and San Francisco was an afterthought, if that. So, Patricia Bagg wrote this years ago online. I don't know if it's still there, but it was something about running into Dave Vanian at the stairs at the Starwood and mentioned something about the flare. And I love this story because she ultimately married him. This totally blew my mind when this happened. Brad Scabies pulled out, he's got a little can of lighter fluid and he's lighting his drum kit on fire, but not really, but something caught on fire. I'd never seen that before. They were the Damned. So then we went over, that was the 17th and 18th. Then there's a picture I'm not putting out publicly. I'm not sure if I have it online, but I have it in my book. On the 17th, one of the reviewers for an LA newspaper was not too impressed by the Damned. So he wrote on the 18th that, and Captain Sensible told me backstage before the show on Monday, which was their second and last night, he says, so the guy's not impressed. Watch me, Jenny. So he comes on and he's wearing a nurse's uniform. Kind of looks like Alice in Wonderland, of the blue dress and the little white pinafore over it. And I'm standing on a chair photographing Brian James over on stage right. And he's over on stage left. And the next thing I know, I'm looking through my camera and I see Captain Sensible taking his clothes off. So I jumped off the chair and I dragged it across the floor. And there weren't a lot of people around. I didn't push anybody out of the way or anything. And when I got back on the chair, I looked around, make sure I wasn't in front of someone. And I took a couple of quick shots, one with his pants down around his legs, and you can see his body. And then another one where he's leaning over picking up his clothes, and you see his bum. But I'm not going to put that out there. But if you would like that JPEG, I'll send it to you, and I can make prints. It's in my book, Punk Pioneers. It's just online, you know, things get weird. Okay, so let's go back to, the party. So after that, we went over to the Screamers, who lived on Wilton, just south of Franklin, and everybody called it the Wilton Hilton because people stayed there and parties and stuff. And so Clem Burke, the drummer, the fantastic drummer for Blondie, and Captain Sensible are sharing some kind of a joke or something over at the Wilton Hilton. And one of my all-time favorite shots in the kitchen, because they're such entertainers. I thought that was so much fun. And people didn't have much. I mean, the Screamers didn't have much on their shelf except some kind of seasoning. I don't know what that is. And a radio, a clock radio. Yeah, and this is the furniture. It's all whatever you found or secondhand. We had the best parties there where people would bring their own food and booze, and I took so many fun photos through the years. Okay, so that was April 18th, and then the following weekend, Blondie had stayed in town, and she made an appearance at Bomp Records, and this would be the 23rd, and these at the Weirdos were there. I was outside taking pictures of them as well, some cool color shots. And then this guy holding all the young dudes, some kind of fan thing, because they sold, actually I found out a lot of my friends stole more records and magazines than they bought. But this guy started the first Blondie fan club, and his name was Jeffrey Lee Pierce. And he started a band called the Gun Club, and the Gun Club opened for Blondie. But at some point, Debbie and Chris wrote a song about Jeffrey, who died very young. And then at the very end of the month, the 26th, I photographed a band from San Francisco. I loved the Nuns. Things I love about this is I was in the dark room the next day saying, who is this guy with the nose? And the next night I come back up to this guy and I go, you in the nose, you ruined my photo. It's like, you know, I just like to have just performers. I don't like to see people in the pictures or their faces. I'm weird that way. And he goes, what are you talking about? And we became fast friends. But I will not give his name because he tells me, Jenny, do not tell people that about me, because then they ask him about stories and he won't talk about it. But this guy, he knows stories. But we will end with this photo. Okay, so I hand rolled and hand developed my own film, and I was just learning as I went along, and this picture was really thin. I had to use really high contrast paper, so it really goes from white to black very quickly, but it makes the image very dramatic, and it was in the window of the Mabuhay for a while. And this is Jennifer Moreau of the Nuns, and she told me she loved that picture because it was in the window. She was a very cool lady. So anyway, these are a few of my many photos, and I have these for sale at, you can find links at my Punk Pioneers site, or the photo store, punkpioneers.com for photos, or merchpunkpioneers.com. That's just a few LA punk bands. It's very limited time, limited amount. And please go to my photo store and see these photos bigger, except if you didn't see the white frame around it, it means it's not on the store, but I can print. It's high enough resolution. So otherwise, all the rest are good to go. So that's the month that really made a difference in LA punk. The first British punk band, the Damned. We had Blondie and Iggy. Well, you saw it all. So anyway, if you want to ponder it more, you're welcome to play this again, or go on over to my sites and read some more stories, order some photos and tees, because that's the only way I can keep this going. And I want to tell more stories. I have so many stories, so many photos. That will happen if you help spread the word and buy something, or send some money. People send me anything from $5 to $50, even $100. It's been amazing. My friends are very supportive, and they know how hard and how long I work at this. So you buy something or you donate, and I will do more stories and photos. How does that sound? I think pretty good. Anyway, go out there and have fun, and make art and listen to music. So that's Jenny Lenz, MFA of punkpioneers.com. I'll catch you later. Bye now.